Hey everybody, sorry we haven't been here. It's been vacations and, well, we are here July 4th week, right, Patrick? Which is a big vacation week for people, but first time I think...
Took ours early.
Yeah, took a little early one. We do have a lot of catching up to do, but before I start, I want to show people some, one thing I like about upholstery is the history associated with the things that we do. And, if you come to the shop, if you've seen our shop, we have at least 6 really high-end items or high-profile items that we have, including the Friends sofa that we worked on, and Napoleon's actual chair, and H.R. Haldeman's love seat, to mention a couple. But now we can add another one to our list, and these are actually 2. One's a settee and one's a side chair. So this furniture comes to us from the Midwest, and specifically Deadwood, South Dakota. I think Randy would be interested in this, Patrick, being out
He's
from
on right now.
Midwest. We're really excited about these pieces. These were in the first mayor of South Dakota, Deadwood, South Dakota. His last name was McLaughlin. So Mayor McLaughlin, 1888, I believe. His first mayorship went from 88 to, well, maybe before that to 88. I'm not sure, somewhere in that area. But one thing that I look at this furniture, I mean, it needs to be, I had to strip it completely down. It's just the seats, and they were sprung. And the client, who was a descendant of that mayor, believe it or not, lives in my hometown out here in New England, which is really interesting. And my hometown actually was at one time, back in the 1600s, was the Wild West. And people look at me like that. Even people in town, they say, "What do you mean?" Well, there was a time when the river separated, the Sudbury River separated the civilized area. Well, call it that. Civilized, really. Which side was civilized? Oftentimes, I think the west side was the civilized side at that point sometimes. But there was a definite line, and the river defined that line back in the 1600s. The settlement, Sudbury settlement, was the edge of the wilderness. And so these chairs come to me from my hometown. The person lives in my hometown, and these come from what a lot of people perceive as the West, the Wild West, and that would be in that time frame, right, Patrick, in the 1880s, where
cool.
A lot was going on, a lot of expansion. And but when I look at these chairs, and I notice a lot of times in the Old West chairs that we do get, and that we're able to trace to the Old West, the chairs are very dainty and delicate. Did you ever notice that, Patrick? These are very delicate chairs. They need a lot of work. Like I said, they were sprung. We're not going to spring them again, but we have a lot of problems in this area. And if you notice, the one chair, that chair probably sat in the sun. You can see the top of the arms are all sun faded, whereas the settee probably was up against the wall in the office, away from the sun. But a really interesting history. I'm really excited about these. I'm looking for, the only thing I have is a number off this. It's 1005. I don't know what that means. But anyhow, I'm looking forward to getting this. We're not doing the springs. We're going to go with the original. We have the original cake. We're going to keep the cake and go. It was webbed from the top, not sprung. And I was explaining that to the customer, who actually confirmed the fact that they were sent out to Sioux Falls, Patrick, Sioux Falls, South Dakota,
Yep.
where they were sprung at some point in the life of the chairs, probably in the 1940s, 1950s, when they used to do a lot of springing. But so this is the type of thing you get into. It's great to be able to talk about some of these past projects that you've done, because there's always a story. Your story is attached to that piece of furniture. It's just interesting. So we're here with the question and the answer. If you're first tuning in, this is the backup to the online classes and the YouTube, the questions that you can ask me directly, and I can answer them live. And we do have some. I did want to mention something else.
The van blew up.
What's that? Yeah, my van blew up. Lost the engine on it. Patrick's probably right. I don't really maintain my vehicles that well, which is kind of stupid. But I don't think this was my fault. We have a hill. We have a big hill at the. We're at the bottom of this big hill. Let's say Patrick, I think you got to turn the camera now.
Just showing off the chairs.
And
we had it close up on the carving.
It's an old van. It's a Transit, and it's got 180,000 miles on it, or it did. And I was behind a landscaper who didn't tie his load down very well, and his top was flapping in the wind, and all the bushes were coming out at me. So I had just unfortunate. It was happened at that point where I had to go around him. And he was driving fast. I had to get in front of him. I just had to get in front of him. And by the time I got to the top of the hill, I knew something was wrong. I did get a little further down the road, but then I heard the pistons really just straining, and then ba-boom, I was gone. And this thing's a toast, so I have to find a new van. At the same time, I did want to talk to people. I mean, is Randy on there, Patrick?
Yep, so is Malcolm.
And Malcolm, I'm really starting to feel the pinch of inflation, both in materials that I need to get, supplies, but specifically customers. And I don't blame them. I'm hearing a lot of, well, that's a lot of money, or can you do any better, or can I bring my own fabric, or do you do repairs? And guess what? I think I'm going to relent in this and start doing repairs. As a matter of fact, I have a perfect storm brewing here at the shop. Imperfect, I should say, because my two main people who do work and help me out as subcontractors are on vacation. So that means I'm going to be sewing a lot. I already told the wife I'm going to be sewing at night. I got to put at least 2 hours of sewing in now per day in order just to keep up. And that's fine. I'm glad I have that skill too, but my workforce is getting older too, and I may have some difficulties moving forward, including myself. Thank God I feel good and I feel energized to do this. But I just Malcolm and Randy and all you guys who are doing this and ladies who are doing this realize that this is a very physical job. And they're, long hours, and you really have to do good quality work. I mean, and keep that business going. So you have to adjust to inflation. I saw a graph, and I don't want to get into politics or anything. I don't even know if it has anything to do with politics, but inflation seems to be going off the charts. So you need to adjust your business to that, and I'm sure Randy and Malcolm know what I'm talking about. But anyhow, we'll still be here. It does affect. We have one more commitment for a class with Jimmy, Patrick. Is that it?
Yeah, our second class package. So we just finished the Wing Chun.
All right. Well, we still need to do the online classes, but I'm prioritizing at this point too. I need to prioritize, so that's getting a back seat at least for now. Actually, Jimmy is helping me. I'm using Jimmy's skills that he has. And that's good news. He's getting paid. He's on the payroll now, Jimmy. That's a big thing, isn't it, Patrick?
Yeah.
Jimmy is using the skills that he has to help me out on a Saturday. Usually Saturdays he comes in, and he's been a huge help. He's got a hatchback that he's delivered a couple of jobs in for me. It's really been a big help, Patrick. So we're going to keep Jimmy working. So good news for him, I suppose, because he likes the shop. He likes to come in and help out. He's pretty good at stripping furniture. He's good with the customers, so that catches us up there. Nico, is there any questions or comments yet, Patrick?
Yeah, let's catch up here. Randy says, a pricing question. The chair you are sitting in, what did you quote as a price and yardage?
This leather chair?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure someone just gave us those, right? That's not a job.
This was just given to us, but
if you were to do it,
I'll tell you though, I would insist that they do fabric because leather's nice, but I'm sliding out of this chair. I feel as though I'm fighting to stay in the chair. I don't think it's a good idea. And the reason I got these chairs that's the reason I got these chairs. They were brand new, and the customer didn't like them because of this. I mean, you feel like you're falling out of the chair. leather was never intended for loose cushions. Never intended for loose cushions. When leather first started being used in the upholstery business, it was all upholstered seats. You know, you never would even dream of doing a leather cushion. I mean, there's some problems with leather cushions. They slide all over the place. You need to put a vent. You need to vent them in the back zipper. Usually that's not enough. So you need to. A lot of times you're putting fabric on the bottom. I wonder if this has fabric. Well, this one's attached. So they tried to overcome that problem by attaching it. I'm sure that underneath this is a cloth backing, but you know, they're trying to introduce leather into regular furniture. It's not a great idea. I don't like it, or faux leather for that matter. But if there were, this is a tub chair. It's kind of, if there were fabric on this, I bet it would be more comfortable because you're not sliding out. I mean, I'm sliding out. So for something like this, there's a ton of labor in this, especially if they want to keep the stitch work here. There's a ton of labor in this. This is probably about a $1,200 job, labor-wise, and fabric-wise, it's probably about 6 yards. Like I said, I don't like doing leather. I mean, leather's great for upholstered seats, so that's fine. I actually have, I wish I could show it to you. It's not here, it's at the other shop. I have a tufted leather rocker that I'm doing that's coming out great, only because the leather is a good quality Italian leather that was dyed properly and has some thin parts to it, which I picked for the tufting. And tufting with, and then what they did, this came to me from a high-end refinisher. They took all the insides out, so I had to recreate all the insides, everything. And it had a sprung seat, and then the back has the deep diamond tufted backs. So what I did was I used foam. I couldn't use the horsehair because it wasn't there. I would have preferred that they had kept the old horsehair. But the foam actually came out pretty good. I have to show you guys when I'm done. So, anything else there, Patrick?
Malcolm says, raise the price in smaller, more frequent increments so customers don't get a big shock.
Yeah.
4 times a year is not too frequent.
But what about with inflation, though? Is Malcolm finding, though, Malcolm, with inflation, are you freezing that theory or going backwards a little bit? Because, you know, it's getting competitive out there, too. You know, there are people. We won Best of Boston 2018. For all you guys who don't know what that is, that was a big deal. I mean, they kept saying that to me. People said that to me, Patrick. Well, that's a big deal winning that. And it was, I guess. But the reason I bring it up is people said to me, well, how many? You know, people always want to put a little damper on your good news sometimes, right? So they'd say, well, how many upholsterers could there be? How many upholsterers could they choose from? Well, the metropolitan Boston area, I counted over 220 in the metropolitan Boston area, which is an area of 2 to 3 million people, let's say. So if you divide that, I'm not really good with the division, but 220, that's pretty competitive if you ask me. And then there's a lot of people who are do-it-yourselfers in that area, that metropolitan area. But then when you leave metropolitan Boston, you got a lot more upholsterers going all the way out to west, all the way out to South Dakota. I mean, if you just look at my home state, I was kind of kidding about that. But I don't know how many upholsterers are beyond the metropolitan area, but I bet it's at least equal to the ones that are inside, because there's a lot more people. So it is competitive. People are smart. People are doing social media. People are copycatting, Patrick, which I think is flattering. I don't know if you know, but there's more upholstery channels out there, right, Patrick?
Well,
and there's more people.
There's gotta be. You can't be the only one doing.
There is.
You know,
there is. I keep. Oops, sorry, guys.
You're like Jimmy now.
No, that's not Jimmy. Wait a minute.
Usually it's his phone going off.
Oh, hi, Beth. We're in the middle of a question and answer. It's my wife.
I told her.
Hi, Beth?
I told her not to.
Hello? Hello? She hung up. She didn't want to be on.
Nago says, no, that's my inflation theory for materials, fuel, etc.
Oh.
If you have to discount your price, that's okay. But make sure to keep your book rate current.
Yeah, he's right about that.
And in terms of the leather, I reupholstered my car in leather from fabric. The heat in Arizona is unbearable with leather.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Oh, so he went from he switched to fabric because of the heat. Yeah, that's another issue with.
No, he switched from leather to fabric.
Right,
Yeah.
but that's another issue with leather and faux leathers is that they're hot and cold, right?
Yeah, I mean it's can't handle extremes, right?
Yeah.
He says, when a prospect says they found someone cheaper, it's not always true. Normally not true. Exactly. They're trying to get you to lower your price.
Well, see, this is another thing that happens with inflation, and I've noticed even the 1%ers play this game.
Every business turns into a pawn shop where they think they can negotiate the price.
But it's really strange how that psychology, and people are so in tune with this. Not that I'm desperate or anything, but they do perceive the inflation. They can angle in and barter and negotiate more. And I guess it is true. Maybe not so much with me, but if I was just starting a business, I would be really worried. But thank God I have a client base where I'm not insulated by any stretch of the imagination. But I noticed that there are people. I had somebody, for instance, somebody came in, Malcolm, you wouldn't believe this. I had a woman come in. She had her own foam, she had her own fabric, and she said, "I need 2 cushions made." And so I said,
so she had everything,
except the skill to do it. So now you're gonna believe this. So I said, "Well, she seemed like a nice lady, and there was somebody else in the shop at the time, so it was a little strategically. I had to be strategic and say, sure, I'll do it, and be customer service, and all that. And so I took the job in." I think it was like 3 cushions. It came to like $700, Patrick, just for the labor, right? So I take the job in. She interrupts another client that was a good client. She interrupts and takes a half of an hour of my time. I write the job. She leaves. She called 4 days later and said, that's too much money. I'm not doing the job. So she pulled the job out, Patrick.
It's like going to a pizza place with your own crust, your own dough, your own sauce, and your own cheese, and saying, put this all together for me.
Well, Seinfeld did, that's what Kramer's idea was. That's how outrageous.
No, but that place already had the ingredients.
But that's how outrageous the idea is, that it was on Seinfeld. But
even in that, he didn't go in there with the ingredients. The guy had the ingredients.
But you made it yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the opposite of what we're talking about. I don't know. I just laugh.
Same thing.
Yeah,
it really is. I mean,
it is. What am I going to do? Get mad at people? I just said, okay, I'm glad I didn't start it. It's all packaged. I put it in a clear plastic bag so that it doesn't get thrown away. Put the foam and the fabric in a clear plastic bag with her name on it, and I'm waiting for her to come to pick it up, which is going to be more time wasted,
Naka makes a good point here. He says, no small business is insulated from inflation. Those who don't raise prices are cutting off their profit margin in their own salary.
Yeah, it's true. That's right. I mean, because we're in the trenches with these small businesses, and my landlord didn't come to me and say, Kevin, I noticed the inflation graph has gone up, so therefore I'm going to decrease your rent. That's never happened to me. That's never happened. Or your favorite restaurant, they just keep going up, which is. That's a poor analogy because the restaurants are like me, but the higher ups, the landlords. I guess the landlord is still living in the same planet we are, Patrick, with inflation too, right? So, but there are a lot of people with a lot of money who do play that game, who do play that inflation game. And
Nico's checking in. Hi, Nico. Randy says, I have gotten that. The same thing.
Yeah.
Then you find out the foam came from a big box store, and you try to politely explain the foam is crap. Usually they don't accept that.
The woman came in all excited because she got her own foam, her own fabric, and oh well. So Nico,
what she didn't give you was the tools to do it with.
Yeah. And the nice sewing machines. These sewing machines, require maintenance. They require skill. This cushion doesn't sew itself.
Since Nico's in here, should show her. I know she uploaded.
Is Nico there?
Malcolm did one.
Well, you want to do that first? You got it in order. Nico.
Oh, sorry. You on the...
Let's do Nico. Actually, Malcolm always has some really interesting... Let's do Malcolm's because that's really interesting. I think I answered Malcolm, but I'm not sure about the sewing machine. So Malcolm says he's got a Singer I think he's resolved this.
Sewing
I'm just
machine.
reading this for all you, everybody else.
Sewing machine question.
Singer 20U-33 tension issues. Tension issues can be mind-boggling sometimes. We used to have the singers that we had, the old singers that we had. I mean, they were 100 years old. We probably should have changed them out. This was a shop where I first started on. And we had a sewing machine mechanics. I don't know if there's any sewing machine mechanics left, so it's a good thing we went to the Juki. But anyhow, he used to be in there almost every month. And, and the main reason was the tension. And that just means if you don't have the right tensions matching this to the top to the bobbin, you're going to have a very poor stitch. And poor stitches are a nightmare for upholsterers. You can end up doing a whole job over again if you didn't notice it. You always... By the way, a little trick, not a trick, but a little comment here. Always make sure you check your seams by pulling the two fabrics that you're sewing apart, and do that frequently. Because the hardest thing is sewing a whole cushion and realizing that the tension wasn't right, and they have to do the cushion over again, or sew it over again. So he goes on, I switched to a Tex 70 from Tex 40. This is the thread, you guys. And now no matter what I do, there's not enough lower tension. I have excessively loosened the bobbin case spring. I would caution against that. I know that you have to do it to problem solve, but you always have to remember, you know what to do. A little technique there is to mark it where it was, somehow with like a little pen, some type of mark, so that you know where to go back in case. The reason I say that for the tension, in case that it wasn't the problem. So I would imagine that he went to when you're problem solving with these things, that would be one of the last things I do. I'm sure Malcolm went through everything else too. I'm sure he did everything else. Make sure the threading was right. Make sure there was no burr anywhere. Make sure the needle was, all those lesser problem solving that you take care of first, or look at first. I'm sure he did all that first until he got to that. He goes on, I have the upper thread tension. I have excessively loosened the bobbin case spring and have the upper thread tension cranked all the way down, but I still have huge loops on the bottom. Oh, I hate that, man. I took the hook completely apart. Oh, man, he cleaned it. Wow. Malcolm. I polished the hook finger where the thread goes around in case something was pinching. They just mentioned the burrs that sometimes, for some unknown reason, a burr. That's why I don't use monofilament. I don't know if Malcolm's using monofilament. Monofilament will really wear out your parts. Be very careful of that. There's no need to use monofilament threads, you guys. Unless you're doing boat cushions, I guess. But expect to be wearing out your machine really quickly when you do that. Something was pinching the thread, and I can't find any reason for the large loopholes in case something was pinching the thread. So, I didn't read this, so as I'm reading, I know that Malcolm's going through all that problem solving. By the way, that is the description of what upholstery the government uses to describe upholstery. They have I don't know if you guys know this, but every job in this country has a description, and the government puts it out, and I can't remember the name of the publication or the book, but I never forgot reading Upholstery. The first thing the first sentence was, must be able to problem solve. Well, that's an upholsterer's day every day, right? I pinched the top thread with my fingers. See, this is really good what he's doing, you guys. Listen to Malcolm. Go on to the Facebook forum if you need to and read this, because Malcolm is giving you really good tips on how to problem solve in your sewing machine. We don't get into this a lot, but it's good that he wrote this out. You should check it out if you need to. If you're looking at this later, you can go to the Facebook forum. What's the name of it, Patrick? Broadway Upholstery School. Broadway Upholstery School on Facebook. There's so many tips on there from Jimmy, me, and Patrick, and from your fellow.
I gotta say, I really don't post.
Well, I mean, you help with the process.
All I post is the.
He says, I'll go on. I pinched the top thread with my fingers before it entered the tension disc and was able to see, this is really clever what he's doing. See, what he's saying is he's using his fingers to kind of get a feel for the tension. It's to see how his machine reacts to That's really smart, Malcolm. I didn't even think of that. And was able to have the lower thread rise up to the top of the fabric barely. This is nuts, he says. It's question. I used to use the Tech 70 regularly and cannot figure out what happened. Due to the excessive top tension, I got to get my thread to see something. Hold on. This is really good, Malcolm. Thank you. Thank you.
Here's some updates here too.
Oh, good. Well, let me read this and get through this. And if he's been good about posting, did he post? We'll ask him if he posted the updates.
Well, he said it here. I can tell you after.
I cannot figure out what happened. Due to the excessive top tension, when I go in reverse, the needle deflects and hits the needle plate now. So cranking, well, as you can see, you've got a problem here. So cranking the upper tension all the way down is not a fix. Something is pinching on the bobbin case. Finger, he says. And I cannot figure out what it is. Should I file more metal off? I want to apologize, too. I'm not sure if I answered you on this one, Malcolm. But now we're doing it. We're addressing a lot of time to this now, so I'm happy about that. Should I file more metal off around the gap where the finger holes a bobbin case from rotating? Not sure. I have 3 bobbin cases, and the problem happens with each one. So it's the hook or the hook finger. Stumped and tired today. Anyone have this problem? He's asking. This is another thing I wanted to mention, you guys. He's asking the community. And right here it says 45 people reached in the post, Patrick. Yeah. So I'm not sure. I don't know what the string looks like on this because I don't always check it. But I think Malcolm's in one of the best places he can be to ask these questions, and I think he's going to have an answer for us in a minute, right, Patrick? Does he have an answer? Do you want to read that?
Yep. Okay, he says he fixed it.
Wow, great.
Turned out the machine was getting momentary tension when the thread was being pinched between the hook finger and hook.
Momentary tension. Never heard that one before. Never heard that.
And I use a gram scale to set bobbin tension so I can repeat it easily.
Okay, so now, is that it?
Well, Nico has some questions about machines while we're talking about machines.
Okay.
She says, speaking of which, I'm debating between a Juki DU1181 versus DDL8700. The first is a walking foot for upholstery. The other doesn't everything else. A lot of fabric I use may not be heavy duty, but gotta pick one. Leaning towards the DU1181.
I gotta tell you, Nico, this is a fantastic segue for after we just talked after Nico. Right. Now, I think Nico does more heavy-duty work. He must because he was using that heavy thread. I use a 30 tex. Malcolm. I use a 30 tex, you guys. And I was sold when I came upon a miracle with sewing machines, and it is the Juki, I have to say. Now, the Juki, I've talked about this before, and I'll give you what I have, Nico. And I'm not sure if they're still available, but I would go with whatever's available in Juki today, what they're calling a teacher's machine, a student's machine, teacher, student, whatever you want to call it. That would be the machine I would go for, even for a professional, because what we just read from Malcolm's is how much can go wrong with something, a bigger machine, a walking foot machine especially, which, there's no question you need, sometimes depending on the shop you're in, you need that. But these Jukis, what they did with these Jukis is, and this is a shame, so Singer was the only company around that anybody used. I mean, there were other ones like, can't remember the names, but that's why I can't remember the names right now. They don't come to the surface, but there were a few companies, but Singer was the best for 100 years. Juki comes along, they take these Singer machines overseas, they reversed engineer the machine, and then they came out with a machine that was a better machine, no question about it. I mean, Singer really didn't keep up with, if they wanted to stay in the sewing machine business, they were stubborn. They didn't want to keep up with the competition. So the biggest thing they did was they simplified it. That was one biggest thing they did, was a self-oiling machine. The oil never comes into contact with fabric or the top surface. That was huge. So Nico, what I have, Patrick, can you expand over here to the machine? I have a DDL5550N, which is a teaching machine, which is what you would be able to teach somebody. It's very simple, very easy to thread. It has a reverse. It does not have a walking foot. But when you're learning, and Malcolm, you probably know this, when you're first learning, it's not good to have a walking foot because you assume the machine, and this isn't true either. A walking foot machine does most of the work for you. That's not true. You really do need to, even when you're working a walking foot, in my opinion, you need to build a skill on the sewing machine. Actually, I've been having fun. If you could believe it, I'm doing more sewing now. I'm actually having fun doing it because it's not what I've been doing for a few years. I've been, relying on other people, but it's actually fun to get back into sewing. So I'm glad we have some sewing questions here. But so the 70, I use a 30 tex threading. It's a permacore, and it comes in all different colors. This is an eggshell, and this is it does great. It has a great stitch. I usually am on, when I'm doing welting, I'm at a 3 stitch. When I'm doing when I'm sewing welting to the top of the cushion, I go down to a smaller stitch, like a 2.5. If I'm not having welting or anything, I'm down to a 2. It makes a fantastic stitch. Very rarely have a problem with loose stitching on that. I should clean that up a little bit, that machine. But anyhow, Nico. Speaking of Nico, Patrick, are we caught up now?
There's a few more things on there. Hold on.
Why don't you read those?
Doing it. Okay. Randy says I always use TX 69 or 70 with a
wow. You guys are using heavy threads, huh?
Yeah, with an 18 or 20 gauge needle. And Malcolm says if you get the 8,700, get the H model for upholstery, but the walking foot is better for heavy materials. But
yeah.
TX 45 is the lightest thread you can use on that one. The Singer 20U is a drop feed garment machine.
I could tell both Randy and Malcolm are engine guys.
They know a lot about these things.
They're engine guys. They're mechanical guys. Yeah.
And that's it. Do Nico's post now.
So Nico, we're still on Facebook. We haven't gotten to the YouTube yet, so we have 2 weeks to catch up. So
somebody was vicious on YouTube. I had to delete the comment.
Really?
They said this video is piss poor.
Oh, must be one of my fans. One of Jimmy's fans.
I haven't heard that one before.
Well, admittedly, we talk about this a lot. Some of the videos we did, they were a little hokey, or they were even tongue in cheek.
But my God, tell us how you really feel.
Maybe it's one of my enemies. Yeah, that's funny.
Sorry, they're distracting.
It's not true. It's not true. My mother said everybody loves me. It's not true.
That's another Seinfeld, though.
All right. So Nico says, "Hi, folks. Decided to go with piping and curvies for the backs of the 7 chairs, and that's through advice that we gave. I think, Patrick, worked out quite nicely, and the client liked them so much they brought more furniture for me to do ! Funny face." Big thanks to Kevin for the YouTube video on frame backs. I was so nervous. It turned out it was much easier than the curvies backs, minus the 2 times I stabbed myself with the staple lifter. Oh my goodness, yeah. Get used to that. And if you have manicure, if you like your fingers manicured, forget about that too. But so this is a good example, of why we do the YouTube videos, why we share our knowledge, I think we make a difference. I know that we make a difference. And yeah, some of them, people don't realize the effort that some goes into these, Patrick, over the years. So yeah, sometimes, we just use fillers, what I call a filler, right, Patrick, where we could have put a little bit more on the online classes, though. We really do put a big effort in, don't we?
Yeah, there's nothing like that on those.
So I wonder if you get these comments, these bad comments, if they're watching the online classes, if they bother to maybe buy a class on there.
They didn't like that camera angle.
Oh, which one was it? Oh, that's your problem. But I did want to show you what Nico did, you guys. Look at this. Look at these dining room chairs she did. I love it. Is she on there now, Patrick?
Yeah, she's there.
Good job, Nico. Really, I love that. Love that colorful stuff. Makes you smile. All right. And now Gene. Is Gene on there, Patrick?
I don't think so.
So Gene's been really, by the way, great. Thank you for the content, you guys. This is really important for the Broadway Upholstery Facebook. Please continue to do that.
And also about that, with the pictures you were showing, definitely, if people haven't seen that, they're much better to go on the forum and see Nico's picture, because I couldn't believe the colors of those. Really cool.
Yeah, they are cool, aren't they? She
Go
used
on there if you want a better resolution.
I'll tell you, just one tip alone, when I think about this, when I think about Nico, and, I had to go through a process. There weren't YouTube videos, and there weren't people willing to share their knowledge when I was learning. I had to really, people would get in your way, on their job. It was really competitive. Oh, poor me, I'm a victim. But I did want to mention that I had to fight and scrap for every little tip that I got, and this little tip that I gave Nico with the two differences between ply grip and curve ease. You can get really caught up in this. Curve ease sounds like it would be better than ply grip, but it's not true. Curve ease, unlike the name it implies, is not easy to use. It's a very thick metal, and I never use it. I mean, some people might rationalize they could use it on leather. I don't even know why you would even close leather outsides up with that, but it's the ply grip was the original. It's a lighter metal. It's a 2-prong, not a 3-prong like the curve ease, but this is the tip that I gave on that video. And let me tell you something. Even I'm hard. I can use the firm of the two, the curve ease, but it's tough. It's tough to cut it. It's tough to when you're pushing it in to halfway. There's everything tough about it. I don't even know why this dumb name they use, but it's the ply grip that really is the better of the two, and that's why she had an easier time. So that one little tip, I'm glad it helped her. All right, so Jean has a chair here. I'll show you in a minute. Clue picked Clue. I'm not sure. I think it's a misprint, but I'll say picked out the French gimp she wanted. I guess she's talking about a customer that picked out the French gimp she wanted and started on the swan chair. Progress so far. Ready to put burlap on today and stuffing in the back end. I did fill in large holes with sawdust and wood glue mix. That was an old trick we used to use. Let dry and then got to work on the webbing and tying. I really like the Italian twine for tying springs. That Italian twine, it's called ruby twine. It's a beautiful twine. I love the smell of that too. It's a very organic, very natural, right, jute, and she's look at the job she did on this Patrick. Did you see this? See the 8-way tie she did?
Yeah,
isn't she good? Isn't she good?
Really good.
Yeah. Keep us updated on that. Did she update that, Patrick?
No, don't think so. I think somebody else.
All right, we caught up on the questions or comments, Patrick?
Let's see. Nico says, if the back of the chairs were straight, I would have gone with the ply grip. About her post.
Okay.
But no, that's it.
All right, so now we've got the YouTube videos. Let's see. How to use and choose trim. And this was a lot of tips in this one too. Great tutorial. This is from Uranium. Great tutorial, thank you. And then we have the new class with Jimmy as Jimmy's flying in the air with a set of wings. This definitely was tongue in cheek, I think, Patrick, wasn't it? Poor Jimmy. Somebody said, love the video, the wings laugh out loud. That was wow 6779, Patrick. And then on the Upholstery Show Live, 30S Vintage, she said, oh, this was so much fun to watch, your response on my MCM chairs. Who's this, Patrick?
That was something we talked about.
I thought that was Nico, no?
No, 3 weeks ago.
Okay. She said, she says, thanks. I should add that I deconstructed the cushions. There is no webbing, but just the wood. The old 1-inch foam is super soft, so I think I can replace it with extra firm foam and get the look, but not the sinking and loss of seat height. So it should give me the height and retain the original look. Thanks, you are fantastic, and I appreciate your advice. So I also should add that I gained a 1/2 inch in seat height by adding felt to the leg bottoms, which I needed to protect our hardwood floors. So I think that the question on this one with dining room chairs, and be surprised on dining room chairs, I have 10 coming in, and they've used the rubber stretch over the hole opening on these. And the idea is that when you're in the showroom, when you sit on these, you feel comfort. You sink in, and you don't spend more than 5 minutes on it. That would be a long time if you sat 5 minutes. Forget about dining for 45 minutes. But it's never a good idea on dining room chairs, and I think this is tied into this, to have it soft. I mean, your shoulder height, it really comes down to almost like 1 inch either way on the shoulder height, where your elbows are in relation to the table. You can't believe how many people I have helped through upholstery. This is one of them. People were never comfortable at the dining room chair because they're sitting inside this hole. They don't realize it. So you put the webbing. Webbing is the best thing. Jute webbing and burlap. 1 inch foam, maybe a 2 inch foam, 1 inch foam and cotton. Pretty much, that's it. You don't want to do anything more than that. I have a customer now, speaking of saving people, upholsterers can change people's lives. And I have a customer now who came to me with a very bad back problem. She doesn't really know where it came from. But that doesn't matter. Pain is pain. And she was in a lot of pain. She had that duck walk, that walk when you're in a lot of pain. I'm familiar with that. And she had cushions that were they weren't firm enough. And she had back cushions too. It's just an example of customer service, you guys. So I've got a bag. I've got one of those big construction bag full of Dacron, loose Dacron, and it's just sitting there. And she had 6 cushions total. She had 3 back cushions, which were filled with Dacron, which, as you guys know, manufacturers just throw the Dacron in there, and then not long. It doesn't take long for the Dacron just to come down. So I filled those, no charge. I said, I got this extra Dacron. We'll just fill the bottom, and she could have done it, but if not for her back. But I did it because she's got this back problem. And I gave her 3 new seat cushions. And, I went to a really extra firm foam on the seat cushions. I charged her like $200 a piece. We made a 50% profit on it, which is fair. And pretty much she called me the next day to tell me how grateful she was. I did the backs for nothing. It didn't cost me anything. I opened the zip and I threw this Dacron in. So what, right? I made some money on the seat cushion, but I made a great customer. That's probably the main point, I guess. So when she was coming to get them, this woman could hardly walk, you guys. So she came into the shop. I said, I'll have them all up front. I'll have them all wrapped up. You don't even have to get out of your car. They were all waiting for her. Can you imagine the sight she had when she pulled up and saw all her cushions in plastic wrap waiting against the side of the building, and they came out and I loaded them in. She made sure she called me just to tell me how impressive she was with the customer service and the caring and everything else. These things go a long way, you guys. I think those are inflation busters right there, Patrick. Yeah. That could be an inflation buster. You got a friend, you got a customer for life, right? And she might have this. Maybe she'll do the sofa later on. I know it didn't sound like a big job, right? But she did come back with another set of cushions for the same problem. She had a house up in Vermont. They had the exact same problem. So I'm doing the exact same thing on another set of cushions. See, so. You have to do the customer service. And now we have 2 comments on the pop button. One says, thank you. The other one says, Tina says, thank you. I love the DIY German needle. You're the best. Totally worked for a beautiful leather mid-century task chair. You saved me from making a huge mistake on how I was going to try and sew the button back on. It would have made it worse. Brilliant. Well, that's a good compliment, isn't it, Patrick?
Oh, there we go.
Any more questions or comments, Patrick?
Randy says, when the rubber stretches out and you feel like you're sitting in a bucket.
It's terrible, and they do it on purpose. No, I don't mean to sound or point fingers or be mean or anything, but webbing, you know, interlacing jute webbing is not hard. And then putting burlap on it, and the same foam. It's the same foam that they use. They have to use the Cal 117, Randy, as you know, Malcolm. I find that the Cal 117 graded foam is usually a better foam. You know, usually it's a high density foam because it kind of goes in hand. And they're required to use that. Otherwise, they'd be using that white foam, which is no good, that flammable foam. But they have to do it on purpose for people to go back to buy new furniture, I guess. I don't know. It's not in their best interest to make something last for 50 years. And that, you know, any good upholsterer, Randy and Malcolm, you know, and now all you guys, the DIY people, you're doing something that you want to last 50 to 100 years. Maybe not the fabric, maybe your work underneath. Like, you look at the work that she's doing here, Nico's doing here. You think this is going to go anywhere? I mean, Jean's doing an 8-way tie coil spring. You think that's going to go anywhere in the next 50 years? No way. She's doing a job to last. That's how we teach. I don't teach to put rubber webbing on this. No way. So the next one is American Victorian Sofa. That was a fun one, Patrick. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah, I do.
Sherry says, do you show how to sew the back pieces together? I'm stuck on a Victorian sofa project and need to see how that is done. I would reference her back to the Facebook forum. You know what I'm finding, Patrick? Some people who are on YouTube aren't on Facebook, and vice versa. They should take.
It's good to be everywhere, though.
Yeah, take advantage of all of these things. And for Sherry, I would say, go on the Facebook and you can ask the question there and get really good answers and videos and photographs. Right, Pat?
Yep, Malcolm says something really good here. He says, good customer referrals is like advertising you could never afford to buy.
That is so true.
I like that.
That is so... And you know, it could go the other way, too, can't it?
Yeah, bad.
Like one person saying your videos of... I don't like that word, Patrick, that you used.
What?
PISS. You shouldn't use that word.
Oh, that guy said it, not me.
But anyhow, I don't like that. I don't think that's nice.
Well, that was about me, not you, so that's about the filming.
Oh, I'm telling you. One guy said, we did that cat video, you know, and I'm trying to explain. That was one of the tongue-in-cheek ones. I'm sitting there like I am with crossed legs on a wing chair, acting like I know what I'm talking about cats, right? I don't know anything about cats, and somebody pointed that out in the comments. Right, Patrick?
Yeah, so you've talked about it every time since.
I know, but it's funny. The guy said, this guy knows nothing about cats. And then the other person said, of course he doesn't, he's an upholsterer.
My God. I don't know what's worse, this is the coconut.
Oh, you know,
you guys, which one does he talk about more?
We don't get too many jokey jokes. But I will tell you a story. I visited Pat. Is Peter your nephew? No, Peter's your cousin, right, Patrick?
Yep.
Huh?
Yep.
Yesterday, and we were talking about his schooling. I'll just say his schooling. They believed in corporal punishment, and he was talking. He said he was talking about this corporal punishment that he went through. And I said, oh, that's too bad. He asked me if I had been through anything. I said, well, no. I mean, the usual psychological stuff. Like I had one teacher that she drew a chalk. This is the third grade teacher. She drew a chalk circle and make you put your nose in it the whole class if you got an answer wrong. That was cruel. And then I told him. I said, and then another teacher would make the dunce caps out of the paper, right, Patrick? I told Peter. I said, you know, we'd get the cap, the dunce cap, and you put in the corner, right? And you know what he said? You know what he said? He said, is that all that happened to you? He said, we used to dream about dunce caps. Did you hear what I said?
Well, I know Mom went to Catholic school, and that was a whole nother animal.
She had a really good experience. Really good experience.
I thought
but Peter, did you hear what Peter said? It was so funny. He said, they used to, in the school, when they were getting hit, I don't mean to laugh at that, but he said they used to dream about just getting dunce caps. And I was thinking, hey, that was a hard thing. I'm a victim. I got a dunce cap on my head once,
We got it easy nowadays, right? Malcolm says, like Malcolm's idea here, a bag of catnip in every chair. There we go.
There's an inflation buster.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. How to use, and you got to have fun too. You know what, these long hours that we put in, sometimes by ourselves, you know, we have to entertain ourselves sometimes, right, Patrick?
Or else you'll go crazy.
Yeah. Now, user UT9WX3GU41 says, did you get that? Repeat that back to me, Patrick. How to use and choose trim. The second comment on that. Excellent. Thank you for answering all the questions I had and make it easy. It's a good day to buy a new glue gun. That is another tip. So, you know, you guys are getting tips that it took me a long time to learn before I finally get it, the dunce cap, right? But I've been using guns, commercial or store-bought arts and crafts guns that have not, there's always been something wrong here and there with these guns, and the main thing that's wrong with a hot glue gun is that they don't heat the glue hot enough. That's why if you buy a gun commercially or at the fabric place that you go to, make sure it has two settings, a high and a low, and then take it and wrap it with masking tape on the high position, because you'll never get a good bond on the low. So that was a tip that we expressed in that, and that one tip alone in that video, I think, is worth.
You can't just buy one that only has the high. They all have both.
I've never seen one. They either not have a switch that doesn't tell you, and the reason most guns, especially the store-bought guns, do not have a high is that's enough to burn a couple of layers of skin or a lawsuit. So they
have to have it then.
They have the lower setting, because really all you feel is a little pain. I could take that glue gun and just go like this with the low setting, and it wouldn't do anything. So I wouldn't suggest that you guys do that. Always get the heavy.
Don't try this at home.
Yeah. The Upholstery Show Live, Gene 96492 says great information on the fabric side of the business. Janine, that was Janine, Patrick. Oh. I just met a man from Australia the other day. He's a bartender, Patrick, and he's got an app, how to mix drinks or something like that.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And then we have a nice gentleman from the Midwest named Randy here. Randy on the YouTube comments.
I thought it was,
this was the worst station I ever came. No, I'm just Thank God he's a friend and Malcolm's a friend. Boy, I've been taken to some damage. If we got to keep them happy.
Tough guys. Yeah.
Randy says, hello, Kevin. I just wanted to say hi and let you know I have not dropped off the face of the earth. Just got busy with life. Have a great week.
I thought it was funny he posted that. Then after that, we dropped off the face of the earth.
That was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, we got back at you, Randy. We disappeared too.
So, the art of spitting tacks. Who cares about spitting tacks? My man shot a fly out of the air with a staple.
That is funny.
Who was that, Patrick?
That's a funny one. You were talking about that in that video. That's why.
Seriously, though, awesome video. Flawlessly demonstrated a trick of the trade I had no idea about. Brought here by my great-grandfather's craftsman. Brought here by my great-grandfather's craftsman, 3803 professional upholsterer, I believe to be from the 50s or early 60s, and it's still magnetized. He's talking about the hammer. I didn't even know what it was until today. Thanks for your demonstration. Yeah, that's interesting. That hammer is a unique hammer. I mean, there's no other hammer. Upholsterer's hammers, there's nothing like it, because it has that double dip. It has the dip on the hammer side and the dip on the magnetic side, and it's interesting now. The dip on the magnetic side is so that when you're coming up to your mouth with the elbow and everything, the direction, the angle of your elbow and everything, it's even up. The dip is to make it even up with your lips to grab the tack. What's interesting on the hammer end of things, it's a little slightly bent too. It's just that a lot of our action is a little bit below eye level. That's why. So it's an interesting tool, really nice tool. You really need to start with that. If you guys are beginners, get good with the. Even though we have staple guns, That hammer, that magnetic hammer, excuse me for a second. Sorry. Is really important to the trade, to your basic tools. Always remember that. And then JKAB Creations, deconstruction of a dining room chair. I was looking for the video you mentioned in this video that you post later. I couldn't find it. Do apologize. Sometimes, the fact is we're a working shop and customers are looking for their furniture. A lot of times we do demonstrate on customers' furniture. And this just
I'm sure you promised.
Yeah. Well, this recent example is the angel chair that Jimmy was working on, Patrick. Yeah. I had to finish that because the customer called, "Where's my chair?" And Jimmy.
So much for all those new GoPro videos.
I couldn't find the GoPro either, or the harness that went with it. Something happened to both of them.
We'll do more when things calm down a little.
But I thought the GoPro. Malcolm said the GoPro worked okay. He said that.
If he says it's okay, that's enough for me.
Yeah,
it's okay.
I couldn't find it. If possible, could you please share the link to the video? I'm so sorry that it doesn't exist. I'm very interested in how you did the back of the chair, because I have one similar I need to reupholster. Thank you. I wish I had time just to do the videos and to do these A to Z. We've got a couple of A to Zs up there you can check out, but not all of them are A to Z, Patrick, right? All right. So do we have any other business that you want to talk about, Patrick?
That's it.
Any other interesting projects coming up?
Most of the stuff what's going on. I haven't really been in tune lately with it, so mostly what you're talking about with the economy.
Yeah, the economy is a concern right now. Inflation, if it keeps going up anymore, I don't know what we're going to do. I guess we'll just plug along. And as far as advertising budget, we don't have one right now.
Just think how everything goes. We'll be talking about how busy we are in September. So,
I hope so. I hope so. So if there's no other questions or comments, I think that will be it, Patrick.
That's it. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Hey, Malcolm and Randy, a special shout out to all you guys.
And Nico, she put a lot.
All of you guys and girls who are adding content and then tuning in and bearing with us with the vacations and everything. I really appreciate it, because the banter that you guys offer back and forth adds I think, a depth to the show, and I really appreciate it. So we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
How long was that, Patrick?
An hour.